I'm now speaking with Gina Burgess, candidate for City Council at large. Gina, why are you running for political office at large?
I love our city, and the at-large position is the only position that represents everybody in the city. All 6 districts. When you run for at-large, you're advocating for everybody. You're not advocating for this district over that district. You are advocating on behalf of everybody. You're looking out for the welfare of everybody. It's truly the one office where we are all in this together, and that's why I'm running at large.
When did you first get this kind of spirit where you wanted to be a public servant?
I've actually always been a public servant. From the earliest times I can remember, community service has been an important part of my life. Growing up, I went to Bishop Dwenger High School, and it was encouraged there. I was always active in church before attending Bishop Dwenger High School. So from food drives to helping out the animal shelter to taking whatever to the elderly in senior citizen homes, I have always been involved in community service. Matter of fact, in my younger days, I was actively involved in pageants, and one of the pageant lines I was involved in was the Miss America pageant line. And I don't remember which year, but I was awarded the Miss Community Service Award. So this is just a natural part of me, and I think being a public figure and a public servant is just a natural evolution of that community service.
So it sounds like this evolution began with your parents.
Oh, totally. Probably actually with my grandparents. My grandmother taught me some very valuable lessons. One of my favorite lessons is no matter where you are at in life, no matter how bad you have it, somebody else has it worse. No matter how good you have it, somebody else has it better. And you just have to live life like that. And she also taught me that knowledge is power. She encouraged me to stay in school and continue on in school, that you're never too old or too young to learn. And you're never too old or too young to learn from people who are older than you or younger than you. So that's the lessons I learned from my grandmother. From my grandfather, the lessons I've learned is self-reliance. He was a farmer, and he came from a big family, and way back in those days, you relied on what you grew on the land, what you stored, so self-reliance there. My mother is second-generation Democrat union worker. My father is second-generation Republican military man, so I got some wonderful, wonderful lessons from the two of them, including lessons about politics, that the left side and the right side, they both have great points, they both have some misconceptions, and that at the end of the day, if you want to know what's really going on, you have to look at both sides, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. So, and then I learned lessons from my brother and sisters. I'm the oldest in a sibship of 5, and let me tell you something. You learn a lot from your younger siblings. You learn a lot about negotiations. You learn a lot about being a leader. You learn a lot about towing the line, and lots of lessons, lots of lessons.
So what happened to really make you, to ignite you, to make you want to get involved with this election now?
This election now, there's several things. The economic development plans that are in place, I don't agree with them. We have a lot of things like tax abatements going on, but we don't have a lot of jobs from those tax abatements. We don't have a lot of jobs in our community that we should have. We're missing out on some really wonderful opportunities. For example, if you can go all over our community and you'll see big box stores. Southeast side, you have the Kmart's. Up north, you got Lowe's or Home Depots. You have these big box stores. Those would be great to be converted into e-distribution centers, something like a distribution center for Amazon.com, for example. We're missing out on those opportunities though. Amazon.com has 67 distribution centers. About half a dozen to a dozen are located here in the state of Indiana. None in the Northeast quadrant. None. Because our economic policies are actually hurting us. I talked with a company called Terrain Global. TerrainGlobal.com, they deal with foreign direct investment, and they looked at this area and they said, well, you have a lot of game playing going on. And I said, game playing, what do you mean? Well, your tax abatement policies, for example, are geared towards picking winners and losers instead of lower taxes, which benefits everybody and doesn't discriminate against anybody. And they're right. That is exactly how this area works. You know, we have a lot of good things coming. We have a lot of things that need improved upon, like our public transportation system. We need improvement upon that. We have a wonderful healthcare system in place. That's a benefit. But at the end of the day, I feel personally that we are on the wrong economic development pathway. I think that we need a pathway that's more fair to everybody. I think we need a pathway where the taxes are lower. I think those lower taxes don't need to be coming as a result of people, but they need to come from taking a real hard look at local government budgets. There's a lot of areas where we need to just buckle down. I'm pretty sure our CDIP money could be used differently, better. There's some departmental line items that I think should be reduced or eliminated. At the end of the day, I'm sort of a political watchdog and a fiscal hawk, and I would like to see our local government, be it the administration and or city council, start doing some belt tightening on local government.
As you watch what's going on, I mean, how you must have some very keen sensors to be so intellectually diversified to where you pick up on this and pick up on that without actually being on council. I mean,
I've done a lot of research behind the scenes. The one thing that our city government is good at and our county government is better at is we have information accessible online. We have our budget books accessible online. And if you compare the city budget book to the county budget book, it's night and day difference. It's like a treasure hunt, and you have to put the pieces together to understand the full picture. But we have a lot of room for improvement. We have potholes. We have a pothole problem. And back in the days of the Graham Richard administration, he used the Six Sigma approach. And potholes used to be fixed in a matter of 4 hours. Now it takes 4 weeks or longer to fix a pothole. We've lost something there, you know? And you look over to Europe and what they're doing. There's a company over in the United Kingdom right now that has a smartphone app where people can actually be in their vehicle, take a picture of a pothole. The smartphone triangulates where exactly that pothole is and sends it to not the city, but to the city's subcontractor. And then the city subcontractor sends the message back that they've received it. Both communications get copied to the city, and within a matter of hours, that pothole is repaired and everybody's kept in the loop. And that's a wonderful technology. It's called Street Repair. And it's an app, and I've actually sent an email to those folks saying, hey, I really like this. This is something you're doing in other countries because, wow, that's a winning idea. And we should be doing more of those sort of things. I'm looking down the road in 10 to 20 years, and we've got a great city worker structure, but we need to keep our city workers, the number of our city workers at their current levels. And if we do that and embrace technology, then as our population grows, our budgeting should get smaller and smaller and smaller within reason. And there's things like that. I would love to put a freeze on the mayor's salary. Our mayor makes more than the mayor of Indianapolis. Our mayor makes more than the governor of the state of Indiana. Now, the mayor's got a really important job, but I think we have some priorities a tad out of line when our mayor is making more money than the governor of the state of Indiana. And so I would like to see a freeze put on there. And there's some other budget items. So it comes from reading the budget items, it comes from trying to put the pieces together.
So once you get in, what would you like to see happen on the south side, because that area of town seems to have been neglected?
That area of town has been totally neglected. The southeast side of Fort Wayne is, residents there have every right to be upset, and Waynedale has been neglected. I think those are the two biggest areas that have been neglected. Right now, I put Waynedale secondary to the southeast side. You go out to the southeast side and it's literally like driving to another town. The infrastructure out there is crumbling. You have the worst roads. The roads are badly neglected here. You have sidewalks that don't exist, that should exist. You have people sending their kids to school having to use sidewalks that are in disrepair or non-existent, and lights that are out. And you have the busing system now, which is just making that situation worse. You have very few retail outlets in that area. You don't have any sit-down restaurants. You don't have any colleges out there. You don't have any hospitals out there. You have very few food purchasing options. You have Walmart, and then you have the outrageously overpriced non-nutritional convenience stores. The list of things that are needed out in the southeast part of Fort Wayne is just, it's a disgrace.
But when you start pointing at what's needed there, a lot of times from what I've read, when a Walmart comes into the area, those kind of things do go. I mean, everything dies. So how do you address that without kicking out Walmart?
I don't think you kick out Walmart. I think one of the first things you do is you start having a reality check on the fact that crime is over-promoted. Crime exists throughout Fort Wayne. It's not localized to the southeast side, but if you ask anybody about the crime in southeast Fort Wayne, it's like, oh no, you should never go to the southeast side of Fort Wayne. Oh my goodness, you're a white woman and you're going out there after hours? Are you nuts? That's just ridiculous in this day and age. There's no more crime out on the southeast side than there is in any other quadrant, and yet we act as though there is. Because it's promoted, because I have no idea why it's more promoted. And I think that's the number one thing that's got to stop. You are scaring investors away. The more you promote things like that, the more you scare investors away. I'm not saying don't promote it. I'm not saying, shove it under the rug. But I'm saying, hey, let's be fair. Don't promote this crime in this area any more than you would promote that same crime in another area. If you're not reporting it out in the northeast side, don't report it on the southeast side. If you're not reporting it southwest and northwest, don't be reporting it southeast. I mean, that's just fair. You're right about the big box stores. But you have to acknowledge that they're sort of a way of life too. With big box stores comes lower prices. It's the economy, it's the scale of the economy, and it is what it is. We need to start getting a mixture. We need to attract a larger size employer out in that area. We need to start attracting medium and middle-sized employers out in that area. We need to encourage small business owners and local business owners to pop up in that area. And that's going to take, if we took just part of the money that we're dumping into downtown over into the southeast side and spent some of that money over there, a little bit of money would go so far over there. It already has. If you look at the McMillan Center, that was $2 million of the legacy money. $2 million of the legacy money, they blow that in a parking garage. So if you took the money that they would dump into a parking garage and actually put that money into the southeast side of Fort Wayne, it just boggles the mind what could be done in terms of infrastructure, in terms of economic development, in terms of attracting businesses.
What overall vision do you have here, not only for all the districts, but the city itself? Because like I said before, it seems as though when you talk with people and ask them, what is Fort Wayne, you don't get an answer. You get, nobody has an answer for that. And I would think that a city that's supposedly the second largest in the state of Indiana should have a strong identity.
We have an identity crisis. We are like an awkward teenager trying to figure out who we are. And I don't have an answer for that question.
How do we get into that predicament?
Well, that's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know how we got there. I think sometimes we as a community, we underestimate ourselves. I think some of it probably started or stemmed from when International Harvester was in its heyday in this town, and GE was in its heyday in this town, and then one by one they've left, and they left behind these holes that really have never been filled. And I think that's contributed. That contributed to economic crisis in the early 80s. And I don't think that we've ever quite recovered from that psychologically as a community.
How about this? That we have never promoted or sold our history. And when you promote this business over here and how great they are, or you go to Madison Avenue and they give you some kind of a 2-cent advertising campaign, those things with no substance don't work until you get back to the core of the history of a community, and that a community should be built on its history and how it was founded.
I think that's true to a point. Your past is important. My past helped make me who I am today. And my past and my present will help to influence my future. And I think the same thing holds true with the city. We have such a diversity of ideas right now. We're living in really interesting times. We have a city that doesn't understand where it's come from. We have generational gaps. You and I, for example, grew up where cash was king. We have 20-somethings that they look at cash and they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? Because they're used to credit cards or they're used to electronic commerce. So there's just a lot of diversity. Right now, downtown is trying to attract millennials. And that's an interesting strategy because millennials are coming out of college with high debt loads. They have a whole totally different lifestyle from any other generation before them, in that they'll stay with their company a little longer than most, and they are willing to move and travel. If you've got a national company, they will go from town to town to town to get promoted from within. You have baby boomers who are aging and they're getting older, and they want to live in the downtown cores because it's more of a convenience factor. They still want to be independent, and their best way for independence is to live where everything is just within walking distance of where they're at. Then you've got people that are in between. You've got the Generation X, which is raising families, and the millennials at some point will diverge and they'll start wanting to have families. And so you have a lot of divergencies going on. And our community isn't the only community that's faced with this problem. It's faced with, how do you make all these different pieces fit? Because they're so different. History is the one thing that sort of helps give us that commonality, so it is very important. Will it actually help us project where we need to be? I don't know. I think that remains to be unseen.
I think what's most interesting about speaking with you here is you don't have much of a reluctance in terms of addressing anything. I guess people don't frighten you, and issues don't frighten you, titles don't frighten you.
Generally speaking, not. I come from my family history again. My dad, military. So as the oldest child, love my dad, but he was strict at times. And I come from a good Catholic background, a good Catholic upbringing. So there was an element of strictness, honesty, integrity, doing what's right, sticking up for the little guy. Those are all part of my history, and so I built upon that. I'm not afraid of very much. I have my fears. Everybody does. We're all human, and I have my frailties and I have my moments. A couple weeks ago, I spoke out at a council meeting, and I was very angry and very upset and very irritated because council had cut somebody off that was addressing the homeless situation. And this person had used up her time to first give council kudos that I'm not certain they deserved, but she was gracious and she gave kudos. And she used up most of her time in doing so before she got to the nitty-gritty of what she was really wanting to talk about. And they called time on her, and she was talking about a life and death situation of, hey, we have homeless that are living on the street, we've got cold weather that is still coming in, what are we going to do? We need to have a plan of action, and we don't have a plan of action in place. So her time was called. She left. She's very gracious in how she handled herself. And another citizen had the creativity and the gumption to stand up and say, hey, this is my name. I have 3 minutes of my time, and I would like to give that 3 minutes of my time to her so she can finish talking about this very important life or death situation. And council said no. And I was so angry, and I very seldom show emotion. But I could not hold back, and I scolded council. I told them they should all be ashamed of themselves, and I meant that. But then again, that comes from my background. A spade is a spade. You know, the truth will set you free, and honesty is the best policy.
Well, but you know, you have referenced time and time again your genealogy.
Mm-hmm. Got history, my personal history.
Well, it's the same thing, but yet the history is the individual things that happen. The genealogy is the things that you directly absorb from your people that make you, you know, who you are. My point in bringing it up is a lot of people don't realize the importance of knowing the stories about your own family, because the stories of your own family are embodied in you today. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, the whole process, when we are trying to reach out to students, to attract the attention of students and people to pay attention to the candidates and what they have to say, the person sitting on the sideline, what will they be learning when they watch you guys in action, especially at our forum here coming up?
What will they be learning? That's a really good question. It depends on how good of a student they want to be. Hopefully, if they're paying attention, they'll see that some candidates are talking from the heart and have a lot of passion for the community, have a lot of good ideas, have a lot of differences, and then you're going to have those students who are just kind of there just to see what this is all about, and they're probably not going to take away as much as we would all hope that they would. But in the end, hopefully, everybody will educate themselves about their choices, because at the end, that's what's really important. What are your choices? How do they align with your needs? Who's going to be the best person to represent your needs? And I think at the end of the day, that's what all voters need to be focusing on. What is your needs, and who can best represent and take care of those needs?
For the people who don't know you across the city, why are you their candidate? What will you bring special to the table for them?
I'm a problem solver, so that's one thing that's really important. If you give me a problem, I'm going to figure out how to solve it or guide you into a direction that you need to go, because I don't know it all. I'm so lucky that I know a lot of people. And because I know a lot of people, it's great, because I'm like, you know, I don't have the answer to your question, but you know who would? This person. And so I bring a connectivity to the table that a lot of other candidates won't. Again, I'm a fiscal hawk. I'm going to make sure that if there's a way to stretch your taxpayer dollar, it's going to get stretched and stretched. I used to work for a law firm, and one of the law partners has been very inspirational to me, a mentor, almost a father figure. And he taught me that you can indeed get blood from a turnip. You just have to know how to squeeze. So I will definitely be bringing that to the table. People who don't know me are probably going to be very surprised, because most people that think they know me think of me as this really tough as nails gal, and I am. You can't come from a military and farmer background and not be tough. But I also have that side of me that will make people go, wow, I did not see that coming. Wow, she can be gracious. Wow, she can be softer. Wow, she can be just gentler or kinder than what I would expect her to be. So I'm gonna be the wild card at council. You're gonna see I'm gonna be that person that asks those tough questions, and I'm also gonna be the person that's gonna find the compromise. And people are gonna either like me or they're gonna hate me, but in the end they'll probably all respect me.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And thank you for watching.